share information and ideas that really could apply across different content areas, but we're going to try to use examples that align to NGSS, ESS instruction, just to be in honor of our NGSS, ESS working group. And as always, the slides and the resources and the recording of this webinar will be available to you on the NAGT webinar webpage, and they will also be posted up on the AGI, their YouTube channel, on the NGSS ESS playlist there. So thanks for turning on that recording, Holly. Appreciate that. Good to go. Okay. Today's presenters are Missy Holzer, who's representing the National Earth Science Teachers Association, Lauren Braze, who's representing the American Geosciences Institute, and myself, Aida Awad. I represent the National Association of Geoscience Teachers. So throughout the webinar, you're going to see some QR codes on our slides. We're using those QR codes so that you can access the webinar discussion spreadsheet, which we'll get into in a second here, while you're still viewing that webinar on your computer screen. So we'd really like you to engage in the discussion via that spreadsheet. And if you shoot that QR code right now, or pull that up on your computer screen, you're going to see that there are 4 tabs across the bottom of it. The first 3 tabs are for the discussions that we have planned for this webinar, and the 4th tab is labeled Back Channel Chat. So please go ahead and drop any ideas or thoughts that you have there on that Back Channel Chat. There's also a place for some feedback there. And then if you've got questions, you can go ahead and drop those questions into the Zoom chat box. Okay. We also do have an upcoming webinar that we're ready to announce at this time. So on April 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have a webinar that will be presented by the AGI staff, and they will be focusing in on some IODP resources. So please watch for that to come in your inbox around the beginning of March. And as always, that entire webinar archive is available both on the NAGT webpage as well as on the AGI YouTube channel. Okay, I think we're ready to get started here. To get us warmed up, we'd really like you to use this QR code or click on the link to get to that spreadsheet. And we're going to do this quick icebreaker. So we're kind of betting that you've used AI somewhere, either in education or for some other purpose. So what did you use it for? What would you share with us? Either jump on the spreadsheet on that first tab, or use the QR code to get in there. And, you know, spreadsheets are interesting. Try not to type over somebody else. If you see a color in one of those rows, just grab another row. Interested to see what you share. Lit reviews right at the top. Good one. Like that. Syllabus creation help. Okay. Maybe a little cleanup there too, right? Ideas for worksheets, short answer questions, generating lesson plan ideas. There's one out there that we're going to bring you in today, other than a Google search, none that you know of. I think I'm going to tag on the word yet to that one. I've used it to try to catch students using AI, and it's proved spotty at best. Yeah, feel that one too. Those detectors are a little bit spotty. Earth Science Week ideas, nice. Ideas for the worksheet, short answer, yeah. Students asked me for flashcards to learn minerals and rocks. So I made them in 3 minutes with AI and had students go through and correct the mistakes as they examine the minerals. That's a really good point that, boy, if you're using Gemini or if you're using ChatGPT, they can create some pretty creative answers sometimes. So having students take a look at those is a great way to go. Give me another 15 seconds. Yeah, especially if you're using Gemini, which used to be called Bard, it can be pretty creative on some of those titles that it's creating. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for getting in there and dropping those icebreaker ideas in there for us. Appreciate that. Get you warmed up on thinking about AI and some of the uses for those tools. So I'm going to take a quick look at where we're going to go this afternoon. We're going to begin with getting some common ground on the terminology that's used in talking about Gen AI. And then we're going to think together about the rationale for integrating Gen AI into your classroom. I think after that, we'll be ready for some hands-on. So we'll have 3 really fast-paced ideas for classroom use before we debrief and talk about some of those next steps. I'm going to turn things over to Lauren here, who's going to take you through some of that terminology. Take it on, Lauren.
Great, thanks, Aida. And to kick things off, let's go through some vocab that you may already be familiar with and some that might be new to you. This will ensure that we're all on the same page as we continue through the webinar. So first, let's address the central concept of what brought us here today, which is artificial intelligence, or AI. It's a broad term that encompasses various smart technologies capable of performing tasks typically requiring human intelligence. So many of us have probably already integrated aspects into our lives. I'll give you guys about a minute to pause and consider how AI is already in your life. You may be thinking about autonomous vehicles, virtual assistants like Siri or Alexa, or even recommendation systems like those used for Netflix or Apple TV to suggest shows based on our viewing history. AI also includes text prediction on cell phones and smart home technologies like lighting and thermostats. And some of these AI applications have been in use for some time now. And a big step up from AI is artificial general intelligence. And this refers to the pursuit of developing machines with human-like cognitive abilities across various domains. And while such autonomous systems aren't yet available, individuals and organizations are actively striving towards achieving this level of sophistication. Some fictional examples of AGI include iconic characters like C-3PO from Star Wars, the robot WALL-E, and Samantha, the operating system from the movie Her. And now we'll discuss GPT, which is a term that many of you are probably familiar with, especially in the context of ChatGPT. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is a model designed to identify patterns in data sets, such as text. And the interaction between AI and the data sets, called training, can use various methods, which we're not going to go into here. In text, the patterns are then used to predict future words and context and generate human-like responses. And the GPT models are often fine-tuned for specific tasks or data sets to enhance the performance in a particular application. Notable examples that we may be familiar with are ChatGPT 3.5 and the newly renamed, as Aida mentioned, Gemini, which was formerly known as Bard. Other variants like ChatGPT 4.0, Gemini Advanced, and Microsoft Copilot all come with associated costs but have more capabilities. And then expanding our scope wider, we encounter large language models, or LLMs, which is a broad category of deep learning models designed to comprehend and generate human-like text. While GPT is a specific type of large language model, it's important to note that not all LLMs are GPTs. In the same way that a square is a rectangle, but not all rectangles are squares. LLMs possess a diverse range of capabilities, including image generation, data parsing, and large language prediction. And finally, we'll quickly touch on prompt engineering. This involves crafting specific instructions to guide the behavior of AI models to enhance their performance. And prompt engineering, again, it involves an iterative process of refinement, and Missy will be sharing some valuable tips and tricks during today's breakout session. So hopefully that gave you a brief overview of some of the language you may have encountered during your interactions with AI, and we're going to go ahead and put some of that to work now.
Thanks, Lauren. So I wanted to share this quote with you. I thought it was really an interesting quote. It comes from Dr. Lee Cronin, who's at the University of Glasgow. I can't do a Scottish accent, so I'm not going to try. But Lee reminds us that large language models are machine learning tools that educators need to carefully consider the use of. They aren't AI in the true sense of the term, at least not yet. So I'm going to plant a song in your mind here, and you're not going to be happy with me for doing it. But this quote reminds me that we've only just begun. And if you're anything like me, your head is either spinning or it's exploding at the rate of advancement in those AI tools. And I think that's okay. So I'm really focusing in on building a really solid foundation through the different ways that I'm trying out using Gen AI tools in support of my students. So thinking about that idea, the idea of we've really only just begun with this, here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering, when did you first hear about ChatGPT or one of the other large language models? So there's a little timeline here. Was it in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s? Maybe it was just last year or the last couple of years. When did you really hear about it? Seen a couple people drop into the chat, 1990s. Okay, I'm seeing quite a few 2022s come up. Somebody recognizes Eliza. Thanks, Lisa, for that one. Yeah, a lot of those answers are relatively recently. So here's a timeline, and it does start with Eliza, as was pointed out in the chat. And when I first saw the timeline, I was really kind of surprised to see that it goes all the way back to the 1960s. And then there's a big breakthrough in 2017 when transformer models show up on the scene. So those transformer models are the key to that special learning that makes those large language models possible. It makes them able to learn from those huge volumes of complex information that they're being trained on, and then they can generate output for us like texts or images or audio or video or lesson plans or student feedback, all those different things. But relatively recently, we can see that much of that has happened. Okay, so I think maybe we have a pretty good foundation to start thinking about some things together. So I'm going to turn things over to Missy, and Missy's going to take us through a couple of interesting activities here. Missy.
Hey, thank you, Aida. And what I'd like to do now is kind of get you to share with some of your thoughts. And so we've got a couple of profound, what we think are profound thoughts about AI and AI in education. And so we're wondering about what you think about these. So this first one is that in the future, the most valuable employees will be those who can think critically, solve problems creatively, and collaborate effectively. And with this yellow part now, these are all skills that can be enhanced by using AI tools like large language models. What we'd like you to do is to jump into the spreadsheet, and the link was just shared for those of you that just joined us. And take a look at the tab. It says we want the
Crowdsourced rationale.
the crowdsource rationale, the first one. What I'd like you to do is take it on there, and then from your perspective as an educator, what are your thoughts about these? These are skills that can be enhanced by using AI tools like large language models. How do you think that can be done in the classroom by you? So this is where asking you to wear your educator hat in responding to this.
And note there are two columns there, so if you want to go over to column B, you can type in that column as well.
Yeah, and so we're doing a shared spreadsheet. So grab a line that's free of somebody else's highlighting and jump in and share. Thank you. Okay,
Missy, I really love this question, thinking about skills that the tools can help students with. Thinking about it in a really proactive and positive light, and anxious to see what people come up with here.
So AI can generate the steps needed to solve mathematical formula, and students can apply the process to specific problems. Okay. Speeds up article writing for proper language, but critical editor needed to verify accuracy. Thanks for mentioning that last piece. Develop project performance and lab assessments, practice using shared spreadsheets and graphs and shared docs, theorizing for collaboration. Maybe evaluate, created by an AI tool. Idea generation, inspiration, all these are really super. Have students check accuracy, help in summarizing large text. I think right now AI tools are not tremendously useful. They seem to be similar to Google searches. I fear that students simply copy and paste without thinking. Sometimes need to learn how to use these responsibly. For example, creating example tests to quiz themselves with. And that's, I think, a good piece for us to kind of think in our minds as we're thinking about AI in our classrooms and our uses of them in teaching, but also in our own personal use. Learning new vocabulary, seeing sentence structure and grammar. These are all excellent ways that we can leverage and also help our students become critical problem solvers and learning how to collaborate effectively. Thanks everybody for sharing. So remember that this spreadsheet is open. So please continue to add your thoughts as we progress through today. Okay, let's jump in and take a look at that next question. Okay, Wendy mentioned Using to generate alternative formats for disability accommodations. Thanks, Wendy. That's so super important. And that's just for, especially for a lot of us that have not been trained with disability accommodations, that's a great one that we can rely on or fall back to just as a place to start. Okay, so we have another question for you. We've got another statement that we'd like you to expound upon. So this one is AI can personalize learning in a way that no human can ever dream of. It can create unique learning experiences for every single student, and it can adapt to their individual needs and their pace. Very similar to what Wendy just pointed out. However, we'd like you to respond to this on the spreadsheet, the next tab over that says crowdsource personalizing. We'd like you to respond to this through the point of view of the student. And so now I'd like you to take your teacher hat off and put your student hat on. And let's jump into the crowdsource spreadsheet and take a look at what your thoughts are on this particular line. Okay, I see a lot of gray spots, which means that we have a lot of comments coming in. Thank you so much. I can get a thorough answer to my question directly, better than a web search. Great. I want to know what the person to my left or right is learning. If this were true, it might be great, but how can I trust it? Handwriting, reading, and transcription into print. Help me translate my ideas into English, and that would be for an ELL student. Terrific. Without my teacher's input, how do I know what is correct? What if the AI is hallucinating? Well, that's a great point to bring up. And what if it is fed erroneous information? I can ask AI to break down a complex topic into very simple language so that I can get started. And great for students with special needs. So yeah, all of these. Oh, you check please check the chat, and you should find the link to the spreadsheet there. Okay, these are all terrific. Learning to be critical. Yeah, and AI is inconsistent with my teacher. I wonder how we resolve the inconsistency. That's interesting. That's interesting. A lot of questions come up with a lot of statements. So anyway, thank you. And again, the spreadsheet is open. Please go ahead and pop your thoughts in there as we progress. And I think what we're going to do now to leverage our time that we have together is we're going to move into some practice. Okay, and so we have a few different ideas, a few different breakout rooms that we're going to be jumping to, and I'll explain that in a second. One is going to be on prompt engineering. Another one is going to be on rubrics, and each one of these you'll be getting some practice, you'll be learning some new techniques, and the last one you can be introduced to a fun tool and an excellent learning tool called CurryPod. So the way this is going to work is Holly has us, our leader in this webinar in the background, has broken us into 3 breakout rooms, and 2 groups will be heading out into breakout room 2 or 3, and the rest of you will be remaining in breakout here in the main room. And Aida, Lauren, and I will be jumping in and out, and we'll be spending about 7 to 10 minutes with you to share with you some interesting tidbits on how to use these AI tools in the classroom. So Holly, I think we're ready. And again, if you have been assigned to breakout room 1, it's not a breakout room. You're staying right here. And you'll stay here for the duration. It's Aida, Holly, and I, Aida, Lauren, and I who will be rotating. Okay. And I think we're ready to go, Holly.
So again, if you're in breakout room 1, it's named do not move. So that means do not move. Just stay in the main room.
Okay, Holly, I'll let me know if we're ready to go. You got everybody split.
Just moving a few extra people back to the main room.
Okay.
You should be ready to go.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to be sharing from a different screen, which is actually a larger screen for me. So I will focus my voice into this computer, which has my audio and visual. However, I'll be sharing from my other screens. So share, and here we go. All right. So if you don't mind, to get us started, if you don't mind, if you could put in the chat box, if you've used AI and I know a bunch of you put this already into the spreadsheet. If you've used AI to gather information, how have you done that? How have you done that? If you've already jumped in and got your feet wet with it? Okay. Oh, good. Curriculum writing help. Good. Okay. Extra material for a lecture. Terrific. Great. Translated resources. Oh, awesome, Kim. All right. Attempted to use a free version but have been totally frustrated by simplicities. Maybe this will help. Okay, great. You know, I think we're all going to be learning from each other. These are all great. So please pay attention to the chat box because everybody here, I think, has used it for different purposes, and it's all inspiring. So what I'm going to be doing is sharing with you a little bit about prompt engineering. And what we're going to do is we're going to put prompt engineering to work for us. And so to get us started, there are these five S's, the 5S model for prompt engineering for educators. And the first one is set the scene. And so for this, we want to provide the AI chatbot context with what role or expertise or environment it should be used to guide its output. So for instance, you might say that you are an educator or you are a super educator or something like that. So you want to couch it with a perspective. And so with that, we say that we want to set the scene for our prompting. The next one is that we want to be as specific as possible. And so this is the whole thing about that prompt engineering is that, you know, we're going to start to hone in. You're going to see how this is going to work pretty quickly. So we want to be specific with those instructions, clearly define the task and provide details on what you want included. And so, for instance, we want to use the 5E model to create a 60-minute hands-on lesson is a little bit more specific than just say, create a lesson. And so then it's gonna help us zero in a little bit more. The third S is simplify your language. And so use a conversational approach, and you're going to see that we're going to have a conversation back and forth with the ChatGPT to create a conversational approach with simplified language that avoids unnecessary jargon. So, for example, we might say create an engaging lesson plan that aligns with CCSS. Even though we're saying Common Core, it might still know what that is, and you'll see that it even knows what NGSS is. The fourth one is structure the output. So tell the chatbot how to structure the output with specifics on format, audience, or sections. So for instance, create a rubric for my students formatted as a table with directions. And it'll actually produce something that looks like that. And then share feedback. And that's how you're going to zero in and really engineer is that iterative process. And you're going to help out not only the chat box, or AI, you're also going to hone in more specifically on what you're looking for. So provide feedbacks at all points in the conversation, share specifics on what needs to be revised to meet your needs, and change the format from a table to a checklist. The next one is one that's not even here, but it's one that I think is super important. I'm going to add that there's a 6S, and that 6S is actually something that was brought up on the spreadsheets as well as in the chat that we had today. And that's being suspicious, and being suspicious that suspect that there might be errors in what is given back. And so we always want to review the work that comes out of AI. So please make sure that everything is usable and aligns with your context, because errors can happen right and left. We can't be that reliable. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. That was, I was looking for an S word. So skeptical, I think, is the best one. Thanks so much. Next up is I just wanted to mention that there are a lot of options for us to use, and each one of them kind of has their own vantage points. I'm going to mention that the OpenAI, that ChatGPT, there's different versions of it. Well, actually, each of these has a different version. The ChatGPT, the free one, is the 3.5 version, and that one is probably just a little bit more limited to Google Gemini. These versions, these AIs have been changing their names right and left. It seems like today we're creating this webinar for you, and tomorrow the names have changed. Microsoft Bing, their new name for their version is called Copilot. And what I did is I've actually tried this system that I'm going to work with you on both ChatGPT and Bing and Gemini. And I found that with the ChatGPT, where it's a little bit softer in its response, whereas Google Gemini, because it's pulling from a lot more, it gave me a little bit more detail in what I was looking for my output. So let's put our educator hat on and see where this is going. Okay, let's get some practice. So feel free, if you want to work in the background on a version of chat of AI, feel free to work in the background and do the same thing that we're doing here. As I said, I'm going to use Gemini, but if you want to try one of the other ones, feel free to do so. So this is going to be our trajectory, and I'm thinking that we only have about 3 minutes to do this because we have to do a 7-minute rotation through each one of the breakout rooms, but we'll get as far as we can. So what we're going to do is design a unit plan, but first we're going to identify an earth science topic and a grade level, and then we're going to start zeroing in. We're going to ask it for a phenomenon and then align it to a specific NGSS DCI. And we're then going to ask to make it local, and you might see some hiccups with that. Then we're going to ask it to generate some lessons. We're going to ask it, thinking again about those 5 S's, we're going to ask it to make a hands-on investigation, but then we're going to ask it to zero in on one of the investigations to maybe add a data table. And then we're going to, if we get this far, but I don't think we will, ask it to generate an assessment for this unit that we're creating, and as well as scoring, and maybe even generate a sample student response. All of those things can be asked, and all those things can be provided for you. Let's get started. Let's give this a shot. Okay, and so, as I've said, I'm using Gemini. I would like from you, let's give this a community shot here. I'd like from you a topic, an earth science topic that we can use here, and a grade level would be helpful. An earth science topic and grade level. Tectonics, and Sarah, what grade level do we want? We want 5th grade, so, okay, so I'm gonna be conversational. Please create a unit on plate tectonics for 5th grade students. Okay, let's see what it gives us for a unit. Okay, so it gave us a unit overview. It gave us some objectives, and it gave us what this unit might look like over a set of different weeks. It even gave us an assessment, a little bit of support for differentiation, and some additional resources. And I said, okay, I'm going to give it some feedback. I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Don't have time for extra feedback, but I want this to hone in on, I'm going to skip the NGSS one, so I don't have time to type all that in, but I'm going to ask it to focus in more specifically on types of plate boundaries. Please create a lesson on plate boundaries. Okay, let's see what it does now. So that was just one of them. That was just one of them that was listed, one of the ideas. And we're going to run out of time. I know we're going to run out of time. Okay, so Liana tried one, a groundwater lesson, told me to pour different colored water on maps to see how it flows. Cool. Well, you know, again, you always have to say, wait a second, is this going to work or not going to work? So then I think what we want to do here is we have just one lesson, and well, let's say that I want to make this, let's hands-on.
Hey, Missy, sorry, I'm going to jump in. I'm here when you're ready to head out, if you want to finish
Okay.
up.
Okay, so I'm going to stop here and do stop share and move on to a different room, and I'm going to hand you over to Lauren. That was just a small taste. So keep drilling down and keep iterating, and I'll see you later.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Missy. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to jump to the next topic, which is going into creating rubrics using AI. And it looks like Missy had up ChatGPT, possibly Gemini. Do you guys have links to those already in the chat? If not, I can toss them in there. Great. I will throw those in really quick just so that everyone has them. And so through this breakout room, let me get to my chat. Sorry. Oh, Missy, I think I still see you sharing screen. Great. So I just threw those links in the chat so you guys can get to either Gemini or ChatGPT, and those are both free. You do need accounts for them, but that again helps because it saves your chat history. So you can go back and forth anytime you want. And so you can pick either of those. You can put both up and you can generate your rubrics using both to see some comparisons between the different tools. But again, we will be creating some rubrics today. So I'm going to start really quick with just a little bit of information about rubrics that we all probably already know, but it's helpful again, just to make sure we're on the same page. And so again, rubrics, it's a roadmap that guides you teachers and also students through the assessment process, and it outlines especially criteria for success and levels of achievement expected. They offer several benefits, which I think we're all well aware of that are on the screen. And then we'll quickly look at two common types, which are holistic and analytic rubrics, which each have their own advantages and disadvantages. And maybe you've heard about these names, but I think you'll be familiar with at least one of the types. And so first, we'll take about a minute or two to compare these two rubrics, which provide successful guidance on a fun topic of mine, which is breakfast in bed. And so you probably noticed that the holistic rubric considers the work as a whole and doesn't break down into any specific criteria, whereas the analytic rubric does break down the criteria and evaluates each aspect of the performance separately. Some of the benefits of holistic rubrics is it usually generates more creative products because it doesn't specify what you are looking for as much. So the different things that students create usually are a little bit wider and a little bit more fun to examine. But typically in science classrooms, we're going to be working with analytic rubrics. And so consider what type you might want to create today. So we're going to dive in. If you want to open up ChatGPT or Gemini, we're going to create either a holistic or analytic rubric to evaluate a project or an assessment about a geoscience topic you're going to be teaching in the next week or so. And so again, you have ChatGPT or Gemini open. And so I'll give everyone about 1 minute or two to pick a topic, generate a prompt. Missy just discussed the prompting with you. See if you can generate a successful prompt in order to get a rubric about something you might be teaching coming up. Carol, thanks for Copilot. That's a good one too. That is you have to pay for Copilot. It's not free for everyone. And so that's why we're typically sticking with ChatGPT and Gemini today. But if you have access to Copilot, go for it and use it. Great. And as you guys are getting your rubrics back from the tool that you are working with, think about something that maybe the rubric contains that the tool created that surprised you. And also what might be something that you want to change about the rubric? Does anyone want to unmute or put in the chat something that maybe surprised you in creating a rubric using AI? Nice, isn't it? Copy paste. Maybe change the text a little bit, but one of the surprising things for me was working with ChatGPT. asked it to create a holistic rubric about a project that we're working on, and it spit out an analytic rubric right away. So doesn't know everything, got to let it know that it's actually an analytic rubric. Please recreate with a holistic rubric, and it spit out a good answer. And so that kind of gets into the next part, which is you want to improve the rubric. And so again, it's important to think about with a tool like ChatGPT or Gemini that it's very iterative, and to get the best results, we have to continue refining the product until you get the result you want. So with that in mind, you can either reassess or you can change your prompt altogether, or you can just tell the tool what you'd like to do. Add this column, remove that. Don't focus on organization, focus on, let's say, lab skills or whatever changes you want. You can, again, talk to it as if it were able to listen and hear you. Or you can, again, prompt it altogether if something that you got was not what you envisioned. AI for Education is one of my favorite AI links, and it has a whole section about prompt engineering. I'm going to throw that text in the chat in case you want to copy and paste. There's some spots to fill in, obviously. So it has brackets where you type in the grade level or the subject or your topic. Go ahead and you can try using that prompt if you want to start from scratch and see what it comes up with when it's given all that information. But as Missy shared, the prompt really is what's important when you're working with a tool like ChatGPT or Gemini. And then after your rubric is created, or maybe you're doing it one version in Gemini and you want to try and see what ChatGPT gives to you, think about how they differ, what are some strengths from the different tools, and what sorts of changes would you make, and how would that help your students? Yeah, Ingrid, that looks like a great tool. You can even specify for the grade level that you're working with. Just to give it some more detail, some more context, it's going to probably spit out the language that's more familiar for those students. And then one of my favorite reasons for working with AI for rubrics, when I taught chemistry and astronomy and physical science for about 7 years, and rubrics were not my favorite thing to create. So this was wonderful when I discovered this. But my favorite part is that once the rubric is created, is I can ask the AI tool to give me student examples. So show me an example of student work that would score this number, and it generate the corresponding rubric with it. And so then I can give the students examples of work that's successful, maybe work that needs to be improved, and show them what the grade would look like using the rubric that was created. And so that makes sure for me, as I'm developing my project or I'm developing the rubric, is that I'm seeing the student work that I want handed back to me, and that I'm emphasizing that when I'm giving out the rubric and the project. Yeah, and student examples are one of my favorite uses of AI, because you ask it to act like a 5th grader, ask it to ask a 16-year-old, it's going to do a good job and give you some responses that you might not have expected. And so in our last minute or so, I'll just flash up these considerations, which are helpful to keep in mind. Again, remember to read what the chatbot gives you and revise it. Hallucinations are real. If you guys have not heard of those, they're basically, if you ask the chatbot to give you information, it will give you information if it knows it or not. And so as you are looking at the content, remember that you are the expert. And if something is incorrect, like I mentioned, it gave me an analytic rubric when I wanted holistic, just correct it and it will learn and move on from that. But it does take someone that knows the content in order to use the material or use the tool. And that's why usually these tools aren't best for information. So tell me about flash flooding in Atlanta. It's a good question. It will give you some information, but there are some things that might be better to just Google and get real sources for, although Gemini does give you the sources as well. So just keep that in mind. And also it's, like I mentioned, it's prompting, not prompt once. Creation using AI tools really is a back and forth process. Think of it as a collaborator that you're talking with, working with, and getting results back and forth. And then of course, use your judgment, like I mentioned, and hopefully you got from these 7 minutes is that you are the expert, especially when it comes to you and your students and the support they need to be successful. So hopefully you learned some new tricks and tips with rubric creation. Does anyone have any questions before I move on and you guys see Aida? You can type them in the chat or unmute. Okay, and I'll throw one more rubric out there in case no one's ever heard of it. It's a single point rubric. It's very fun. It gives you just kind of that middle band of this is what's acceptable, and then it lets you elaborate on things that were successful or things that need to be changed. It does take a little more teacher work that you usually fill in more text. So it's not just circling rubrics and moving on quickly, but they're one of my favorite rubrics to use as a class because it really does give great personalized feedback and allows students to be creative and elaborate and advance the project in creative ways. Awesome. Well, I'm going to jump on, and like I mentioned, Aida will be jumping in this room shortly. Go ahead and feel free to continue to play around with the chat bots and work on some rubric creation for your upcoming projects.
So I am back in the main room, and you guys have been here. You've already heard from Missy and you've already heard from Lauren, correct? Everybody? Yep. Somebody give me a thumbs up. All right, perfect. I'm going to ask you to grab your phones. Grab your phones, grab your phones. You're going to need your phones for this one. And I am going to share the screen. So today I'm going to share a tool with you that's called CurryPod. And the reason that I want to share this tool with you in particular is because as an AI tool, it has the power to provide your students with immediate and individualized and personalized feedback, which I think is great. So it's a tool that contains templates for creating lessons. It contains already completed lessons that you can take and adapt or run as they are, or you can go ahead and develop your own lessons from scratch. So I'm going to pull up a lesson that I created earlier, and we're going to walk through this. You're going to be the students today. And this is a lesson that comes from a template that CurryPod calls feedback from a historic figure. And the historic figure that I asked it to create a lesson around is Alfred Wegener. So it gave me this nice picture on a slide that I could put right up of Alfred Wegener. And it generated a little bit of information as a reminder. I'm thinking about this as an exit ticket for my students. Grab your phones because you're going to log into CurryPod just as a student would do here in just 1 second with this screen. So if you can grab your phone, shoot that QR code or type in to your browser there, curi.live, Curry Live. Grab the QR code. Once you get there, it's going to ask you for your actual name, because as a teacher, I want that name on the report that only I can see, so I can see how you did. But it's going to give you a nickname. So I've got a walking fish and a smiling cat and a falling fish. Interesting names there. Great to have you all joining. I've got 17 of you in so far. Give you another 10 seconds or so to get in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit play. We'll go on with the activity. So remember, I'm doing this as an exit ticket. My students are used to doing this. They grab the QR code. They're in there in just a few seconds. And once they get in there, they know that the next screen they're going to see on their device is a screen where they will see the prompt at the top of the screen. Underneath that, they're going to see a text box, and that's where you're going to type in your response. So here's the prompt. You've just done your lesson on continental drift theory, but what would Alfred Wegener say about a map of magnetic anomaly patterns? Go ahead and type in your response, and we'll see what you all learned about continental drift theory and how you can put that together with magnetic anomaly patterns. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. And I think one or two of you will probably do this as a student and say, boy, I don't know. Or we'll say something like, well, aren't the continents just like puzzle pieces? Don't they just fit together? Because I know I would get those responses from my students. I'll give you another 10 seconds, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this up. You can hit that submit button. You might have to scroll down on your screen to get to the submit button. So this is the first part of the activity. We've got a little bit of information about Alfred Wegener. We've got a prompt up there that asks us to process parts of what we had in the lesson today, maybe something that they've read or had an experience with in a lab. I'm going to go ahead and close that part of it down. All right. And if you'll take a look back at your screen, you should be getting individualized and personalized feedback that's generated by CurryPod. Up on my big screen in the classroom, I can see the responses that each student entered. No identifiers are on it, no names, no nicknames, nothing. But I can see all your responses. And I notice here that it's a little bit more in depth, and some that's, oh boy, just question marks or IDK, LOL. And I bet that you all have feedback from CurryPod that is specific to what you typed in on your prompt. Pretty amazing, right? It would have taken me, I don't know how long, a minute to 2 minutes per student to do that. So over 30 minutes to generate that feedback. And now the students have just walked out of the classroom and they've got that feedback already. Or maybe they're still in the classroom, and I'm going to go ahead with the rest of this activity that CurryPod offers me, which is this. It asks next, what did you learn from the feedback? Get your lesson, got a prompt, you put in your response. And now you have to say, okay, what did I put together from what I wrote and the feedback that it gave me? What did I learn from that? So if you grab that screen again, there's going to be another text box there, and you can just drop in a quick note about what you learned from that feedback. Let's give you about 30 seconds to do that. Thanks for the humor there, Wendy. Classified clearance back then. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that one. I think we're running a little bit low on time here. At this point, you would be able to vote up or down on the responses to that, but I'm going to go ahead and skip the voting here because I want to end this lesson. I want to show you very quickly the report screen so you have a sense of what's on that report screen. So I like to start out with the student screen because I can do this pull down menu. I can look at what each individual student submitted for each of their responses. And then I'm going to come back to the summary screen because I like this generate insights button. Here, CurryPod is going to look at the prompt. It's going to look at the information that was given. It's going to look at all the submissions of the students. It's going to tell me what the most common understandings were, the most common misconceptions were. It's going to recommend something that I might want to do as an activity. And then at the bottom, it's going to give me who needs a little bit more help and who did really great on this activity. So that is a very, very quick, very shallow dive into CurryPod. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to all come back together here in the main room in just 1 second. And hang around if you have questions specific to that, please. We're in the do not move room, so we're just staying right here. All right. Okay, I think we have, do we have everybody back in our room yet?
Not quite.
Not quite, okay. Are they coming back, Holly?
They're coming back.
Okay, excellent. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, thank you.
In 5 seconds, you'll have everyone.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. So to my last group, if you're really interested in CurryPod, I have a very limited number of free upgrades. If you want one, reach out to me via my email. You'll see that on the last screen coming up here in a few minutes. All right. So are we all back?
Mhm.
Excellent. All right. My hair's on fire. I don't know about you guys. How are you feeling? We would love it if you would drop into the chat box for us, just something that's kind of put your hair on fire or made your head explode here in the last 53 minutes this afternoon. Drop something in the chat box for us. The rubrics, yep. So it says you can log in for free, but the price says 4,000. If you scroll down below that, it's, I think, $8 or $7 a month. That's for a whole district on that price one. You liked CurryPod, you're feeling more brainiac. Nice, thank you. The rubrics are really cool, right? That's going to save us a lot of time. Can help with creating anchoring phenomena. Yep. Overwhelmed with the AI smarts. No, we shouldn't be. We're all just getting started. Remember, we've only just begun, and no, I'm not singing that song. Impressed with what is possible. I think I'm going to go down the rabbit hole this afternoon. Yeah, I bet a lot of us will do that. So I have one really big ask for you right now. Put at least one thing on the top of your to-do list, or put it on that calendar of yours. We want to see it way up there at the top. All right. Continue to drop some information in there. I'm going to go on to our next slide because we're going to run out of time here in about 6 minutes. You'll have access to these slides, and on this particular slide, you can see 3 sets of crowdsourced AI resources. These are very broadly across education. They have been out there. The 2 on the sides have been out there for a couple months. The one in the middle is relatively new. But these are really deep crowdsourced resources. So I think you will find an awful lot there to dig into, and it will take you down yet another rabbit hole. But I encourage you to take a look at those. Thank you, Lauren, for dropping those links into the chat box for us as well. Okay, that kind of wraps up our time here. I'm going to shift hats back to the webinar moderator here and remind you that we have another upcoming webinar on April 11th that will focus in on IODP resources that'll be presented by the AGI group. And this webinar will come out as a recording, as the slides, as the resources very soon to you. The post-webinar survey, maybe Holly, if you could drop that link in the chat box for everybody. The post-webinar survey is the way that you get a certificate of participation if you need that, but moreover, we really appreciate the feedback that you share with us. So please do jump on that post-webinar survey for us. Somebody got the link, drop it in the chat, please. Okay. We also have a page up on the NAG2 website that is called the K-12 Professional Development Opportunities. That page is filling up quickly with great things for you to do in terms of professional development for this upcoming spring and summer. So please jump on that. If you have an opportunity that you'd like to have listed there, please reach out to Missy or myself. We'll be happy to get that up there for you. And the webinar, as you know, NAGT working group is made up of 3 organizations. NAGT is one of those 3 organizations in the NGSS ESS working group. And NAGT is your source for all things geoscience education. And we'll pass it on to Missy to say a quick word about NESTA. Missy.
Yeah, so NESTA, National Earth Science Teachers Association, is your premier K-12 Earth Science educator organization for teachers by teachers. We have a quarterly journal that we publish quarterly. We have a monthly e-news, wonderful website, and we have a wonderful presence at NSTA. We hope to see many of you there. Please join us.
Lauren.
Great, thank you. I'm with the American Geosciences Institute. We're a federation of member societies. We love to work with anyone in anything related to geoscience. One of our big initiatives is Earth Science Week, which is in October every year. This year's theme is Earth Science Everywhere. If you are interested in getting some more information, feel free to contact me at my email address or visit the link or visit earthsciweek.org. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. We're going to leave this slide up with our emails on it. If you'd like to reach out to one of the 3 of us, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Holly. Congratulations on getting us all in the place we needed to be. Really appreciate that, Holly. Thanks so much for being there in the background. And feel free to jump off now, but if you would like to hang around, we will hang around for a couple minutes and be here to answer questions. So thanks for joining us this afternoon, and we will see you on our next webinar.
Thank you so much. Bye.
I'm going to stop the recording
Yep,
for
perfect.
those who
Thank
are
you.
on, but feel free to stay on and chat